Hello, and welcome to the Pro Series Conversations from CheckBox Pro. My name is Missy, and I'm the founder of CheckBox Pro, where we help school leaders become their most efficient and effective selves by matching them with ed-focused executive assistants. Each member of our team has over 10 years of experience in the education sphere, and though we may consider ourselves pros in some areas, we can't be an expert in every area. This is why we are excited to bring folks working in the education space to offer tools, tips, and insights to make the life of a school leader even more sustainable. Eric Cohen is one of two owners of Butler-Cohen Design+Build. Eric received his undergraduate degree in finance from the University of Texas, hook 'em,
Yes.
and a law degree from South Texas College of Law. Eric has been in the construction industry for the last 31 years and has extensive experience in financing, design, and construction of a wide variety of projects, including charter schools, which is why I have him here today. Eric is another one of the folks that came recommended to me from some of my previous chats and guests, and I'm excited to learn more from another expert on the school's facility team. Mouthful. Eric, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes.
Glad to be here. My first
Oh.
podcast.
Well, you're in good company.
Yeah.
I think it was Drew's first time. Amy was a first timer.
Right. This is great.
It's fun. It's great. And you
Yes.
know what? Y'all are the experts. So, if anybody messes up, it's really just me. So, which I'm going to call myself out right here at the very beginning, and also just to highlight how gracious of a guest I know you're going to be. So for our listeners, when I was inviting Eric to be a guest on today's podcast, I kept referring to him as a developer. He very kindly said, well, I'm not a developer, but let me send you over some questions and thoughts so that we can rework the focus of our discussion so it's actually relevant. So clearly I needed you, Eric, to be on the show so that and at minimum you can educate me on the difference between a developer and a general contractor or a construction manager and kind of all the things we'll get into later in the show. And I think the quiz for myself is going to be, can I answer that question at the end of this? Then
Well, it just shows how good a topic this is. If you're confused, probably a lot of people are confused.
That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping. Okay, but before we get into all of that, I just would love for you to introduce yourself to our listeners, specifically highlighting your background and career journey that essentially got you to the role that you have today at Butler-Cohen.
Sure. Yeah, it's so funny how life takes you on a path. So I started off at the University of Texas a while back, and I ended up going to law school. I had a business degree, and I looked at a lot of successful business people, and a lot of them had law degrees. And I thought, this would be a great kind of way to kind of set me apart from other people in the business community by getting a law degree. And I got a law degree from South Texas College of Law, and I was graduating and getting married at the same time. And I desperately needed a job. I did not want to be walking down the aisle without a job. And a lawyer job was the easiest one to get. You could get it right out of law school. People were coming to the school to recruit. So I panicked and I got a job as an attorney, and I started doing it. And my first job was in construction law, and I really fell in love with construction and construction law. And I got into being an attorney. And after like 13 years, I was sitting at my desk. I was actually a managing partner of a firm here in Houston. And I remember sitting at my desk saying, you know what? The law was always supposed to be a background. I wasn't supposed to be an attorney. It took me 13 years to remember that. I, made kind of a life change for myself at that point. It was I loved the law firm I was working with, and I loved my law partners, but I really wanted to do something a little bit different. So I went to go work for a client for 5 years, and not as like an in-house attorney, but like doing business development and operations. That's, I was a managing partner of my firm, so the operations side intrigued me. And I met my business partner, Sean Butler, at that construction company. So and then after 5 years, we left and started Butler-Cohen. So that was a little over 10 years ago. So yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy journey. You just never know where you're going to end up in life. But yeah, so that's how I got here. So that's how we started Butler-Cohen. It was him and I. It was one of those traditional him and I in a Starbucks, with the free Wi-Fi and tons of coffee. And we just really started from scratch and hired a lady that we worked with at our previous company. and started adding people, adding people, adding people. And so now we're up to about 80 people. We're all over the state of Texas. So we're a general contractor, not a developer. We can talk about that later. But yeah, so that's how we got Butler-Cohen, and that's kind of the backstory of Eric Cohen.
Oh my goodness. Okay, wait. So tell me again, when was Butler-Cohen founded?
10 years ago. I can't
10
do the
years.
math. It's impossible to do that math, but it was 10 years ago. There's no way to know what year that was, but it was 10 years ago. So
No, 10 years.
2014. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So we just celebrated our 10th anniversary was in March. We had a little party this past month. So
It's a long time, but it's really not a long time
right.
to be already up at 80 folks
Yeah.
that work with me in 10 years.
Yes. Yes. No, it's a lot of people, but just it's a lot of great people. And the neat thing is, kind of, you're probably the same with your business. I've hired every person. I've sat in the interview with every person. So every person, I was able to look and see if they have the qualities that we look for in a person. So it's neat for me because they're all people that I thought were great and are great. And it's not like I came to a company and you have to deal with this person, you have to deal with that person, and this person's been there forever, and it's just it is what it is. I mean, these are all just great people that I was able to kind of handpick. So
That's awesome.
they're great.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Well, I don't need to ask the question of, why, we're going to kind of transition, right? Like, I don't need to ask the question why somebody would need to engage a general contractor or
Right.
a construction manager. Like, not very many of us can design and build facilities. Like, it's not a skill that people possess. So I guess maybe rather than asking like why somebody would want to work with a general contractor, maybe do we need to go back, Eric, and think like, do we need to find the difference? Or will that come up naturally, developer?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different roles I play, and it all depends on the procurement method that a school wants to use, right? So a school, a charter school is a public school, and they have to abide by all the same procurement laws that a school and an independent school district would have to follow, right? And traditionally, there's a few different methods that schools will use, whether they're a charter school or an ISD. We typically build for charter schools. That's kind of our niche, but regardless, you would have to go through a procurement. And so there's different methods of procuring a general contractor or construction manager. And so just depending on that method is determines what I'm going to be doing for the school. So newer schools, you're typically starting off as maybe they found a strip center or an old grocery store, and they don't have a lot of capital, and so they're just going to kind of remodel something to fit their needs. As the schools matures and they are able to finance projects, and they might do something a little bit bigger, or they may want to build something on their own. And then in any of those scenarios, that's where we would get involved.
Okay. But let's back up even more. A developer, what is a developer like versus, and do they play a role in? Explain to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. So a developer is a third party. They're not a school. They will come in and they can do, they could basically go find the land. They can purchase the land. They can hire the general contractor. They can hire the architect. They can have it built for the school. Where the school really is not having to do anything. The developer is taking on all that responsibility. And then there's different scenarios where a developer may then lease it back to the school. And so the school is just making a lease payment for a period of time. And then there'll be a provision in the lease where they can actually buy that school back from the developer. So there's a whole bunch of different scenarios where a developer could get involved, and different, depending upon what the school wants, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the developers will just be subject matter experts to come in and help manage the process, but the school will actually borrow the money and the school will buy the land. But traditionally, the developer is taking care of everything, and the school just has to then just lease the building from the developer. So that's kind of like the most traditional way to do it. So if you go to the Charter School Conference, you'll see various developers, and we work for developers. They're sometimes an important piece for a newer charter school that might be having trouble with the financing, like we talked about. Maybe they can't raise the financing. Well, developers, have maybe better access to capital, the capital markets, and can kind of serve in that role for the school until the school is able to kind of stand on their own 2 feet and go for money.
Okay, so it really isn't. I mean, I think that the leaders I've worked with have I don't know if I should say they haven't worked with developers, but it feels like they've taken on more of that risk themselves and like have been like heavily involved in, the design, the site selection, like all of those things versus just coming in and going like, yeah, here's my payment. Okay, so that makes sense and interesting, and I'll have to kind of keep an ear out for like those differences in how leaders are working and getting their facilities
Right.
on set.
Yeah, and the reason why sometimes maybe people, if they have the capability to do it themselves, they don't want to do a developer is the developer's doing it for a fee, right? So there's a cost involved that if the school's able to do it themselves, that development fee then can be deployed somewhere else in the process, right? So it just depends on the school and how much horsepower they have to run a process like that.
Yeah. I don't know if you can say this because it might, sound biased, but do you have a preference for the types, like, do you prefer to work with schools directly versus working with a developer? Or is for you, it's equal?
It really depends on who the people are. So, there's we work with developers, and there's some developers that we really like to work with that are great. There's probably some that aren't or whatever. And then, it really depends on the needs of the school. We want what's best for the school. So I would say I don't have a preference. It's really kind of the same for us. But if we're able to do it with the school without the developer and the school can save some money there, then that's probably better for the school.
Yeah.
And we actually can do a lot of the things the developer can do. So I don't want to confuse this. We sometimes could do that. We take on some of that role, and we can help find property and, help bring the team together. And we just do it so we can get the construction project. We really don't care about the other stuff. It makes the project happen. So.
So going back, you mentioned, of course, like there's this procurement process, then rules that they have to abide by. I've definitely seen, there's an RFP. So, but I learned RFQs, which are different. And so I'm assuming for a charter school to initially engage with you all, they have to probably do something comparable. And
that's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. There's 3 different, I would say, primary methods to engage us. The most traditional way is what's called design, bid, build, which is the school hires the architect. The architect comes up with a set of plans. The architect works with the school. They figure out everything that they want, all the needs of the school. And then they come up with a set of documents that then they put out for bid. And that's called an RFP, request for proposal. And in that case, a company like ours would take those drawings and we would put together a price and submit our price for those drawings. So that's design, bid, build. Typically, price is the big driver on something like that. Usually, even though a school might say, well, it's more than just the price. We want to make sure this or that. It's hard to pass up the low price. You really have to. So it ends up in that scenario kind of being the low price. So that's kind of the most traditional format. I mean, that is probably the most traditional format of procurement that's been out there, right? I would say in the last 20 years, some other methods have come out that are they're called alternate delivery methods. So the next one's called construction manager at risk. And what's different about that process is that the charter school will hire the architect and then immediately hire the construction manager. And so the construction manager and the architect work together during the design phase with the owner to get to that end product of that final design. What's neat about that is the construction manager can give valuable input to the architect and to the owner about what things cost. So there's not a lot of surprises. When you do design, bid, build, you're not going to really know what it's going to cost until the market tells you at the end, the building costs $10 million. And you may have thought the whole time it was $6 million, but until it went out for bid, you didn't know. With the construction manager at risk, we're getting the drawings in stages as they're being developed, and we're pricing them as they're being developed. So if you have a $10 million budget, we get the first round of drawings and we look at it and we say, whoa, this is a $15 million design. Well, the design's not done yet. And so we can work with the architect and say, like, we need to shave $5 million off of this. Okay. Yeah. And it's not too late at that point. You're still developing the drawings. And so that's okay. And that's kind of part of the process. And then so we get involved and we say, you can save $1 million by doing this, or you can save some money by doing that. And it really does right size the project so it fits the budget. And so once we finish going through that process, we get a final set of documents. then we put them out to the market, and we get subcontractors to bid it. We come up with a final kind of what's called the guaranteed maximum price. That number is a lot more predictable, and it really is a little bit more efficient because you're not having to go back and rework things like you would with design bid build if you were over budget. And a lot of ISVs use that method. And so that's kind of a RFQ and an RFP. So the first stage is they request qualifications, and then they'll ask for some limited pricing. They'll want to know what we charge for a fee, and they'll also ask for a little bit of some other information about something called general conditions, which is our cost to be on site on a daily basis during the construction process. But those are the only two things you'll know at that point because it's not designed. Once it's designed and then you can get the subcontractors to bid on it, you add the fee together with the general conditions and the subcontractor cost to get you the final total price. Does that make sense? I saw your eyes kind of glaze over a little bit.
Well, no, I'm trying to figure out why. So I know I'm having questions, and I'm like, okay, is it appropriate time? Because I know you mentioned there's a third method that's common.
Yeah.
And, I'm trying to get a sense of like the pros and cons, because you mentioned like design, bid, and build is the most traditional, or like it's, the most common used method. But the risk seems so high. And I feel like it's going to, like, if I get to the end, and to your point, right, it's like, this is a $10 million project, but our budget's 6 or whatever it might be. I mean, how much time has passed? And like the people I've talked to before, right? Like Amy and Drew, like they're talking like, you need to get this done in like 12 to 18 months. And so I'm just thinking to myself, like a designing of a building, then to get to the end and do all of the RFPs for the people who are, finally able to bid it out and to quote it. How much time have you lost? And now is that school, like, I mean, really having to hustle to make up. I don't so I don't know if that question should come up now.
No, it's a great question.
Or if it's later after you talk about your
no. You hit the nail on the head. That is the problem kind of with that method. That's a problem. And then you have to go back to what's called value engineer. So you got to go back and relook at the whole project and figure out how do you get it shaped, get the price down. But it's very wonky at that point, right? In my opinion, it's better for the construction manager be involved early, and there's a lot of less surprises. The other thing about design bid build is I'm getting the documents. I have like 30 days to bid it, and then I'm signing off on this. And down the line, I might find some issues with the drawings there's something wrong with them, and there's very common. Yeah. And if my subcontractor says I need more money because this wasn't drawn in the drawings, it wasn't in there, and the architect says, oh yeah, you're right. Well, now the owner has to do what's called a change order to add money to the project because the subcontractor has an additional cost for this missed issue. So I'm not a huge fan of the first method, but it's out there and it's very common, and we're gonna you'll see it. It is common. The second method is, I think you can de-risk the project for the school a lot more. We can really get into the drawings, and if we see problems with the drawings, we can bring them up then before we give them to the subcontractors, so that we're kind of trying to limit change orders and surprises. Really, I mean, the school does not need surprises once we get started.
Yeah.
So that was a very good question, Missy. I mean, you hit the nail. You like for someone that just heard that or whatever, you've zeroed in on the issue right away.
Well, my business is time management.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
So all I hear is like, this sounds like it's a time issue.
Yes.
And
correct.
Already I'm stressed on behalf of leaders about how much time they have to devote to these projects anyways, like doing that while, which is why this has been a fun mini series, is because it's been great to learn about the experts who are helping create a little bit of capacity for these leaders so that they don't have to be on every single call in order to keep the project moving forward. But at the end of the day, it all falls back on the school leader, and they have to make sure that that building is going to meet the needs of all the kids that they're promising for. So, okay, so we've got design, bid, build, which I'm not a fan of, non-expert opinion. Construction manager, I'm liking a little bit more, but then I think you mentioned there's the construction manager at risk, excuse me.
Yeah.
And then there's a third.
The third one is it's something that we do a lot for our chargeable clients called design build. And basically what that means is that we have a contract with the charter school to design it and build it. So the school doesn't have to manage the architect and manage the contractor and worry about if there's a conflict, is it the architect's fault? Is it the contractor's fault? We promise to deliver a project for a price and a time and on a certain schedule. And it takes a lot of the headaches away from the client. Now, there's headaches involved in any construction project. So I'm not going to say all the headaches go away, but a lot of the risks in the design and some of the other risks that an owner would take in the previous two methods, as a design builder, I end up taking on those risks myself. And so it's a real efficient way for the school to, one, to manage a process because I have to manage the whole thing. And number two, it really limits the surprises. There's not a whole bunch of change orders in that method, because if there's an issue with the drawings and there's something missing and a subcontractor says, hey, it wasn't in the drawings, I own that risk. I don't come back to you, Missy, and say, hey, sorry, Missy, this was missed in the drawings. You don't care. They're my drawings. I'm responsible for the drawings as a design builder. I'm responsible for the construction. I really have all the responsibility and risk. And so that's appealing to some of our charter school clients that don't have to deal with managing, an architect and also managing either a general contractor or construction manager. So it's very similar to construction manager at risk as far as the process. The client or the charter school is talking to the architect. We're figuring out what they want. As we're going through the different design phases, we're pricing it to make sure it stays within budget. All those things are the same. That very much looks and feels just like construction manager at risk. As far as the client's concerned, it's the same. It's really just who's holding the risk of the design at the end of the day. And I think you can move a lot faster also when you have the designer and the contractor kind of working very closely, kind of under one umbrella, so to speak. So I would say that's like my favorite method. I just think it's a lot of fun. We can really control the design and make sure, it's fit for purpose. We stay within budget. We're not including systems that have really long lead times. It's going to delay the construction or make the construction take longer than it needs to be. I guess sometimes we kind of feel like we're kind of a little bit control freaks, and the more we can control, the better outcome we can give to the client, I guess is the way to put it. Yeah. So, that's design build. And that's a relatively newer procurement method, but we do work for other markets besides charter schools and a lot of institutional investors that really want to make sure that this is all, we only have this much money and that's it. Design build's a good way to go because we can really kind of make sure we stay within that budget because we can control the design.
Now, does Butler-Cohen have in-house architects, or are y'all just doing a preliminary, like bidding that out, like, or, partnering? Or
great question. Yeah. So there is a few people here that have architectural degrees, but they're not really practicing architecture. We hire third-party architects, and really, we do so many different types of projects that we wouldn't be able to have like an in-house architects, because some are good at schools, some are good at other types of projects that we do, but it's hard to find an architect that's good at everything. So by using third parties, we have a few architect firms that are really good at schools, that know exactly what a school needs, and they're not going to, and specifically charter schools, that, not to throw shade on anybody, but an ISD, sometimes you drive by these schools, you're like, wow, that is like spectacular. It must have cost a fortune, and it probably did. Charter schools, you're on a budget, and I like to say, you want it to be beautiful in the functionality of the project, not necessarily you don't want to build the Taj Mahal. You want to be efficient with the design and give that charter school the most bang for the buck, and that goes back to the design. And so a lot of the architects we work with understand that. They're not trying to win an art contest or a design contest. They're there to stretch that dollar to get the most school we can for our charter school clients. And so those are kind of the architects we like to work with in the charter school space. But like I said, we do other types of projects for different clients, and we would use different architects for those.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So with the design and builds, which obviously it's in y'all's company's name, that would be like your preferred probably method, but is there less cost? Is there a cost saving element, or just because it's all in-house, right? Like again, going back to that control piece, like you can, but it's not really in-house because you just mentioned that the architect is a third party. So
It is, but you're thinking about it the right way. Our price per square foot typically is lower on design build projects than any other method.
okay.
So we really are able to get efficient, and it's because we control the design.
Right.
So, we and this is, there's nothing wrong with this, but an architect will say, Missy, wouldn't it be great if this wall over here had these great TVs? And you're gonna be like, well, yeah, that'd be fantastic, but when we bring you the price, you're gonna be like, whoa, what just happened here? If we're involved, whether it's construction manager at risk or design build, when they ask you that question, we'll say, wait a second, Missy, this is an extra cost. If it's something that you really need, that's great. Let's do it, but let's go find some savings somewhere else.
Right.
So that
Right.
you're not increasing your cost by adding these things. Your cost is going to stay the same. We're going to redeploy the capital in the place that makes the most sense to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one thing that goes back to me being a control freak, I can control all that. So I can give you the TVs and not increase the cost because I can go find some other place where we can do something that might be a little bit less expensive and keep you within your budget.
Yeah. I think about when I was like trying on wedding dresses when I got married, right? I was like checking the price tag first, right? I'm like, I don't want to try on a beautiful dress that I can't afford. Like,
Right,
I need to kind
right,
of know where I'm going to be at the end because, of course, this shiny thing. Like,
right.
of course, I would love to have that full court gymnasium with,
Yes,
that the retractable, like, like, but what do I need? And I think
right,
that's like such a great, and probably why it's so important for school leaders to be very involved is because they're really the only ones that are going to be able to answer that most accurately, is like what is needed, like what's the mission of our school. Is the mission of our school that we invest heavily in athletics? Okay, then maybe the answer is yes. But if
right.
we are a STEM school, I actually need my labs to be a little bit more beefed up than my gymnasium, and so
That's right,
we can do a smaller build here. So
right.
um
Yeah.
well, that's awesome. Okay, so that's very thorough. I think I understand. And I'm a proponent of design build, like
I
that.
did my job.
And
I put it in my
before
name
they,
for a reason. And once again, it's not for everybody. And there's times where other methods, we do all three, but I do think it's a neat way to collaborate. It's a true collaboration. Both construction manager risk and design build are great ways to collaborate. You get good people together, solve problems. Charter school people are very smart. They're highly functioning people. They can process information. They're great to work with, and you can really get through things fast
yeah.
in both methods.
Okay. All right. So flash forward. So all right, we have the design in theory. And obviously we know there's change orders that'll happen maybe throughout the course of the project. But when it comes to like how a leader is now interacting with, like, even in a design build, y'all pivot from like, okay, great, we have the design, and now we're into more of like a general contractor role,
Right.
and kind of overseeing that project. But whether the question is from start to finish or maybe in different roles, but like what qualities or maybe experience should school leaders be looking for when they are choosing a general contractor to work with, or a
Right.
designer, or builder? Like what should they be looking for?
In this space, I think one, you want I think it's always good to check references. People don't always do that, right? But it's so important. Schools have to open in August, right? The school not being ready in July or August is a very bad thing. And so that's, you want to ask, you want to check reference and say, hey, did this contractor or this design builder finish on time?
Yeah.
So I think checking references is good. I think that we're very involved in the Texas Public Charter School Association. We've been doing it we've been doing stuff there for 12 years. We're a known commodity. We can't screw up and do something terrible and come back the next year to the association with our booth. So I think looking to see like who's in the community and who has worked with people in the past, I think is good. I think when you're interviewing people, it's always good to, like, you're going to spend a significant amount of time with this other business. Do
Yeah.
you get along with these people? Do you have common interests? Do they understand the mission of the school? Is there alignment there? So I think those are all important things to look at when you're trying to find a general contractor, construction manager, design builder. Is there a connection there, some commonality? Because I'll tell you this, Missy, construction is difficult. It's fraught with risk. Things are going to go sideways. And you want to know, if I'm in a foxhole with someone, are we going to be able to fight through this thing and finish and work together to overcome obstacles?
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And that's kind of what we try to do we try to set ourselves apart is, we don't run from problems. We say, run towards a problem. If you see something happening, run towards it. Let's go solve it.
Yeah.
Transparency is very important. Like you just mentioned, your clients or charter schools are very busy, but it doesn't mean they don't want to know what's happening. And so, what does that look like? We give our clients what's called daily reports, so they can see what's happening every day, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's how I see what's happening. Our projects are all over the state, so I get a daily report every day from our various project sites, and it tells me the good, the bad, the ugly, because I need to know that as a business owner.
Yeah.
I have no problem sharing that with our clients. I want them to see the challenges that we're running into or the victories that we have on site. So that transparency, I think, is important for a charter school to have with their partner. And that holds true, especially during the beginning of the project where you're coming up with pricing, right? I mean, I'm not going to just walk to you and say, hey, well, it's $10 million. Here's an invoice or here's a proposal. I mean, we want to show you all the information. These are the 3 bids we got for electrical, and we're not going to take the low bid because we're worried about the low bidder. We think we're going to be better off with the middle bidder. Or, gee, Missy, we maybe want to go with the higher bidder because we're worried about schedule. We got to finish on time. So there's all that communication and transparency. We get buy-in from the whole team, which includes the charter school operator and all the other partners. So I think that's what's important, is just finding the right partner.
Yeah. Now, is the school leader have like one point of contact with, so they've engaged with Butler-Cohen, right? Is there one point of contact throughout the entire course, or is there a handoff of like, okay, this person is, again, heavily involved in the design part, and then it's a new person that's more of an expert in like the construction management piece of things?
So yes, the answer is yes and yes. So we will. We bring on a what we call a senior project manager that is there from the beginning all the way through the end. Okay, so at the very beginning, their design phase, all the way through the end, there's one point of contact. You'll know this person, but during the process, we'll have different team members that are going to be more prominent. So during the design phase, we have a pre-construction manager named Abby Soto. She'll be running that pre-construction design phase. Our senior project manager will be involved in all these discussions and meetings, but she's running the show. But the senior PM is there because what we have found in the past, when you had this handoff, it was super wonky. The client's there the whole time, but like during the design phase, there's deals that are made or things that are happening that sometimes don't get handed off so well. And so the client will be talking to the project manager during construction. Whoa, we were supposed to have this. We talked about it during the design phase, and the project manager's like, well, I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But if we keep that senior project manager involved from beginning to end, there's a continuation of knowledge and information that stays with the project and on our side and the client side that's important. So that's how we handle that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes sense and is smart. Okay, y'all do commercial building as well. Like y'all don't work exclusively with schools.
Right.
So how important have you found it to be for your general contractors and designers, like to have school experience? Like, would you, like, if you're looking at your team of who to place with, an up and coming school that's opening, are you placing just any of your construction team or design team on that? Or are you pulling from a subset that have school specific experience?
Yeah, so we would try to do that. I think the most important thing is, every project has to be finished on time. So it's not like there's nothing magical about a school, other than if you don't finish a school on time, it's terrible. Like if I'm building an office building for someone and I'm a little late or whatever, not that I'm late, but it's not the end of the world. but the kids are coming. The kids are coming. The kids are coming. So I think that it's good for, to have someone from a company side that understands that, and then internally with the company that understands that, so that you're not rushing at the end to finish. You're rushing at the beginning because you know what's coming, and you're managing that process. So yeah, we will typically use people that are on charter schools on our charter school projects. It makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine how it would
I
feel.
I can tell you this. I can't imagine it either. We've never
You've
been
never,
late. We've never been late, knocking on wood. But, we hear the horror stories, of that, it happens. I mean, it's not that I mean, it definitely happens in the industry, and it's not good. It's terrible. So yeah, that is something you might want to ask when you're, when your clients or the charge schools are talking to potential vendors, has this ever happened to you?
and yeah, and will you finish on time?
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other, before we kind of transition, are there any other red flags that, school leaders should be looking or watching out for when evaluating contractors for their projects?
Um, I would say that, this is probably true in a lot of different things. Be careful of like a crazy low price,
Yeah.
because it might be something different at the end, or, they always say you get what you pay for. Um, I think that's a thing sometimes where any client can get caught up in the pricing of something, and you forget that, well, it is important that we finish on time, or quality is an important piece too. And uh, so I do try to caution against like getting the very cheapest possible build you can get, because you could end up buying some headaches and some other things down the road that you might not want.
I feel like that is one thing I've learned. I am very frugal in my personal life and probably even my professional life. And in so many ways, it has served me well. But I have, but I'm also not doing huge facility projects. And like that, I think that's been one of the pervasive themes I've heard beyond just like it's important to have a team that you trust. It's worth the investment in the right people,
Yeah.
because you will pay for that. You will pay one
Right.
way or the other. And it's just, yeah, how much headache do you want? Like, and if you hire the wrong person on the onset thinking I'm going to save a penny and then have to try
Right.
to employ somebody else to fix all their mistakes,
Right.
it is more expensive. And
Right.
so
I
uh,
think it's a good way to look at it.
I think that's
And,
so right
I
about the
don't think
school.
frugality is not bad, because we like to be frugal also. I mean, it's a mind towards not paying more than you need to. That's okay,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, if you need to get a computer, you're not going to buy the cheapest computer just because you're being frugal. You're going to get a computer that functions the way you need it to, but you're not going to pay any more than you need to, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I think that's a good way to look at it, which
Yeah.
the same way we look at it as well.
Okay, so the whole mini series is like securing a facility. Part of that, and a lot of the people I've been talking to have been kind of in those earlier stages, right, of even just like site selection. And just, whether it's, I've been talking to realtors and like financial advisors, right? Like they're having to constantly assess, can you actually buy this land or this building or this whatever? Do y'all have a hand in like site selection for like a new school facility? And if so, what is y'all's role? Maybe what additional factors should school leaders be considering when choosing a site
Yeah, no, that's a
from
great
maybe
question.
a design and build perspective?
Yeah, so we'll get like a we could get brought in by a broker that says, and the school said, look, we found this site, and this happens all the time. We found this site, we think it looks good. Do you think we can fit the school on it? Or, do
Mm,
you see anything wrong with this site? It's really small. What are the challenges we might have with this site? And we're able to go in and kind of, well, it's almost kind of like a test fit. We
yeah,
said, well, we can fit the school on this site. You're going to have this much, we're going to need for parking, and this much over here for a detention pond. It's not going to leave you very much room, but you can go 3 stories. If you can go, we can go 3 stories up, and it works. So I think that's kind of where we come and get involved in site selection. Or we'll look at, all the utilities there, and if the utilities aren't there, what is it going to take to bring those utilities? Because that affects the cost a lot of times. Is, how close are you to power? How close are you to gas and sewer and water? And are you going to have to have a big run of those utilities to the building. Or we were with a client yesterday, and they had kind of a smaller site, and probably the site wouldn't be big enough for the building and a detention pond, so they would have to use underground detention, which is super expensive.
Gosh.
So we're able to kind of give that feedback to people, and then they can decide, well, let's pass on this site. This is probably, we don't want to spend a bunch of money on things we're not going to see. We'd rather spend our money on the building versus underground water detention, or running utilities a mile or whatever it is. So that's where we can come in and really help the team assess a site.
Okay, we're coming to the end of our time, and I think I want to understand, you've worked now in this space for 10 years at least, right? And
Yeah.
just you've gotten to work alongside a lot of school leaders, seeing different schools with different missions and visions and special, specific educational needs. And I just would love, like, if you have a story in mind, and you don't have to give their name if that's not okay, but maybe just like what it's like to work with a school leader. Why do you enjoy doing this work and partnering with school leaders to build a school? And, just, I mean, it's good work, and it's important work, and it's work I'm
Yeah.
glad that they don't have to focus on, but you have
Well,
a little bit wider net. And so I'd like to just kind of hear
yeah,
your
I mean,
perspective.
that's an easy question, because charter schools are my favorite thing to build. I
Yeah.
mean, I think, and this happens almost every time, but a couple projects recently, project in San Antonio, a project in Houston, where the kids were not in fantastic facilities. Maybe they were older, temporary buildings that were 30 years old, or a rented space that wasn't, maybe it was something else before it became a school. And there's just limited resources for the kids. There's maybe a little tiny, not a great playground. It was something else before, or like I said, portable buildings. But you build them something that's a new school, and it's just for them, and it's got the labs, and it's got, maybe it's got a gym that they didn't have before, and it's a brand new classroom with all kinds of neat technology in there. And seeing these kids in there, going from, the kind of an older place to a brand new facility is just insane. That really does it for me. I think that's really why we like to do what we do. It's just so neat to see what the kids' reaction to go into these places is just fantastic. And so, it's not necessarily with the huge charter networks that are building a whole bunch of stuff all the time, but kind of our we do a lot of work with kind of the smaller, newer charter schools, and we see a lot of that. Moving from a rented space to a new building it's just fantastic.
Yeah. I have little kids right now. And so a 6.5-year-old is my oldest. I mean, she gets so excited about just like like the new shoes, right? Or like the new backpack. And there is something that's really sweet about, of course, they're not going to complain about the old. They don't have that sense of comparison, but
Right.
man, with a new shiny playground and some grass where they can
Right.
like
Right.
it is really special. It's really sweet. Any interesting trends, innovations? Like, I mean, the schools I've seen recently, like they're so modern compared to like think about my high school.
Yeah.
They're just like kind of all the same, but like what are what are the people doing these days when it comes to design, and what are they looking for, and or maybe what are families looking for when kind of assessing a school?
I think that a focus on, there are getting like sometimes the schools didn't have a gym, and now it's got a gym. I mean,
Yeah.
so there's stuff like that I think really can set a school apart if they can afford to do it. In Dallas, you have to have a storm shelter because of tornadoes.
That
And so that usually we turn that becomes the gym, right? So you end up getting a gym because they have to have a storm shelter.
smart,
Yeah,
Eric.
it is smart. It's like,
I
how do
didn't even
you,
think about that.
right?
Yeah.
How do you kind of use the dollars most efficiently to give the kids something? We try to make the schools look as neat as possible, but really, like I said before, we really deploy the dollars inside to have that learning experience for the kids. If we can save some money and they get some better technology, that's a win for us and the
Yeah.
school. So really just trying to be efficient, I think there's not a lot of great, sexy trends in building schools, but especially, being creative. You've probably heard from Drew that Masterson that, the interest rates are gone up. And so that limits the amount of money a school can borrow. It's just becoming more and more expensive. And so what can you do creatively to stretch the dollar? And I think that's what we're trying to do all the time.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Anything else that you feel like our listeners, like you would just be remiss to not, share this nugget of wisdom or insight, or, or maybe what's, how can people engage with Butler-Cohen, and just a final sign off?
Well, I think it's important just to know who you're doing business with all the time. And anytime you're doing any business, even in your personal life, right? Know who you're doing business with, get a comfort level, get recommendations, ask around. I think it's good that if, that your vendor is part of the charter school community, and, we're a part of the Texas Public Charter School community. We do a golf tournament every year where we raise $30,000 for the Texas Public Charter School Association's PAC, so that they can go do things to help charter schools. And so I think, to me, it's important to use people in that community, because the dollars are recirculating back into the charter school community. And, we're passionate about the charter school movement. We're always trying to find a way to help. And I think that's an added benefit to someone that wants to work with, is trying to build a school or remodel a school, or, we're in the community. We're going to take care of you like a partner. So.
I love that. I love that, Eric. Okay. Well, I have one final question.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Okay. And it's in the spirit of my company's name, CheckBox Pro. What is one box, big or small, personal or professional, that you hope to check off today?
Today?
I know it is 3 p.m. right now. So,
I this is silly. I want to go see my wife and have dinner. She had kind of a rough day. So if I could just see her for dinner, I think, and check that box, I think I'll be good. We have to come back and re-edit that.
No, it's great. Like, it's supposed to be big or small. And I think,
Okay.
Y'all are busy. So I'm sure being able to sneak away for a dinner is might actually be a big box.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Try to check off. So, well, Eric, thank you so much. Thanks for being just another important member of, that facility team. Like I said, your reputation precedes you. So it was good to finally meet you and put a face to the name. I'm confident I have emailed, at least, if not you, somebody from your team on behalf of a school leader.
Sure.
And so, thank you. It's beautiful.
I really appreciate the opportunity. This has been a lot of fun. I was nervous about being on a podcast, but this was great. It was just like talking to a friend. So hats off.
And you're the expert. So like I said, if anybody's going to flub, it's me.
No, this is great.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us. And we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for listening to today's Pro Series conversation. Our team is always looking for more pros to learn from in the field of education. So if you have a recommendation for a future guest, or maybe you are the pro, then send us a note at info@checkboxpro.com. And if you want to hear from more pros, then like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so that you don't miss an episode. And by doing so, this also helps more folks find our show. So take a moment to check that box off your list today.